Dr. Chen's discovery quickly escalated to the highest levels of government. Within hours, a classified briefing convened beneath the Pentagon, where military leaders and scientists assembled in stunned silence as the alien transmission played on repeat. "The language structure is unlike anything in our linguistic database," explained Dr. Chen, her hands trembling slightly as she advanced to the next slide. "Yet they've somehow mastered every human dialect. The translation is flawless, eerily so." General Marcus Rivera leaned forward, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display. "And we're certain this isn't some elaborate hoax, some foreign power testing new psychological warfare." The transmission came simultaneously from 17 distinct points in orbit, Dr. Chen replied. "Our satellites confirmed unknown objects precisely positioned to maintain optimal communication coverage across Earth's surface. This is real, General." Across the room, NASA Director Kayla Johnson pulled up additional telemetry. "The energy signatures are beyond anything we can produce. Each vessel, if that's what they are, generates power equivalent to our entire global output." As the briefing continued, a junior analyst slipped a note to the general. His expression darkened as he read it. "They've begun scanning our military installations, all of them, simultaneously." Meanwhile, aboard the Zevrak command vessel Inevitable Convergence, Admiral Orcs studied the holographic representation of Earth with growing concern. Unlike his peers whose crystalline bodies pulsed with anticipation of another routine conquest, Orcs's lights flickered in patterns indicating deep unease. "You've analyzed their conflicts?" he asked the ship's tactical processor. "Affirmative," came the response. "Humans have engaged in approximately 15,000 significant wars throughout their recorded history. They currently maintain 193 separate political entities, despite sharing identical biological classification. And yet they've never unified against a common threat. Insufficient data. No external threats recorded in species history." Orcs's body darkened momentarily, the Zevrak equivalent of contemplative silence. "Show me their entertainment constructs again." The display shifted to scenes from human fiction. Outnumbered forces defeating superior invaders, lone survivors outlasting apocalyptic scenarios, primitive warriors overcoming advanced technological threats. "They rehearse for us," Orcs murmured. "Their entire history is preparation for this moment." His second-in-command, Varric, approached with light patterns expressing dismissal. "Admiral, the Council grows impatient. We've studied 16,000 species across multiple galaxies. None have survived past Phase 3 of conquest. These humans have barely achieved rudimentary space travel, and yet they imagine our defeat in elaborate detail," Orcs countered. "They create thousands of fictional scenarios where beings like us fail. What species does that?" Varric's crystalline form brightened with a Zevrak expression of certainty. "The Council has reviewed your concerns and deemed them irrelevant. The conquest timetable stands. We begin processing at dawn." As Orcs watched Varric depart, he accessed Earth's information networks once more. Among the data streams, he found something that intensified his concern. Historical documentation of a small island nation that had once attempted to conquer a significantly larger power, believing victory would be swift and certain. The result had been devastating for the aggressors. "Pearl Harbor," he said to himself, testing the strange syllables. Something about this historical moment resonated with their current situation, though he couldn't articulate why. The Council had dismissed his warnings. The invasion would proceed as scheduled. But for the first time in his centuries of service, Admiral Orcs wondered if the Vanishers might finally have met a species that couldn't be gathered. Jackson Way's global hacker collective operated from 100 different locations, from Singapore skyscrapers to Reykjavik basements. Their decentralized network proved to be their greatest strength as they continued extracting Zevrak data through vulnerabilities in the aliens' communication protocols. "Got something major," announced Layla Madani, a former cybersecurity expert from Tehran. Her voice carried through encrypted channels to the rest of the team. I've accessed what appears to be their tactical archive. Historical conquest data spanning thousands of years. Jackson leaned closer to his monitor, dark circles under his eyes after 36 hours without sleep. What's the pattern? Do they have a consistent approach? Disturbingly so, Layla replied. 3 phases for every conquest: assessment, submission demand, then systematic processing. No species has ever survived past phase 3. Her voice faltered. Jackson, they've done this to 16 galaxies, thousands of civilizations, some far more advanced than us. At the United Nations, Dr. Elena Rice presented her findings to the hastily assembled Earth Defense Council. Her synesthesia, the neurological condition that allowed her to see language patterns as intricate color formations, had proven unexpectedly valuable in deciphering Zevrak communications. Their language contains no conditional structures, she explained to the room of grim-faced leaders. No what if or possibly or perhaps. They communicate only in certainties. This suggests a psychology fundamentally different from ours, one that doesn't naturally consider alternative outcomes. Admiral Zhao of the Chinese Navy tapped his stylus against the table thoughtfully. A species that cannot imagine failure. Exactly, Elena nodded. They've never needed to develop strategic flexibility because they've never experienced serious resistance. In Geneva, Maya Russo received the intelligence reports while preparing for the next diplomatic engagement with the Zevrak delegation. She quickly recognized the strategic opportunity. The aliens' rigid thinking could be their greatest vulnerability. We need to present them with scenarios their prediction models cannot process, she told her team. Responses that appear submissive but contain hidden preparations. Negotiations that seem straightforward but lead nowhere definitive. Meanwhile, in orbit, the Zevrak emissaries communicated their findings to the Council. Their crystalline bodies pulsed with confusion as they transmitted. Humans communicate with multiple layers of meaning. They say one thing while facial expressions indicate another. They use phrases with no literal translation. Request additional processing capacity to interpret these inconsistencies. The Council's response was immediate: irrelevant complexity. Proceed with standard evaluation. On the ground, as Maya continued her elaborate diplomatic charade, Jackson's hacker collective made their most significant breakthrough yet. A junior member, formerly employed by a gaming company, identified a pattern in Zevrak neural processing. They're like perfect AI systems, she explained to Jackson. Flawless at predicting outcomes within their experience parameters, but completely thrown by genuine novelty. They literally cannot compute actions that appear contrary to self-interest. Jackson immediately grasped the implications. So if we appear to act against our own survival interests, their systems would experience the equivalent of a buffer overflow, she confirmed with a grim smile. A cognitive blind spot we can exploit. As the deadline for humanity's response approached, military forces worldwide implemented Operation Contradiction, a strategy that appeared disorganized on the surface, but actually positioned key assets in unconventional locations. Nuclear submarines silently repositioned beneath Arctic ice. Fighter squadrons dispersed to remote airfields. Special forces units embedded within civilian populations. The Zevrak, monitoring Earth's military channels, detected only what humans wanted them to see: apparent disarray and panicked preparation. Their analytical systems registered humanity's response as standard pre-submission disorganization, exactly as observed in 16 previous galactic conquests. What they couldn't detect was the quantum-encrypted secondary communication network now linking Earth's defenders, a system based partly on stolen Zevrak technology and partly on human innovation, operating on principles the aliens had never encountered. The Zevrak emissaries studied the chess match with increasing agitation. Their crystalline bodies flickered with patterns that human observers later described as cognitive distress. Though they could calculate billions of possible moves in seconds, the underlying psychology of the game disturbed them profoundly. The queen is the most powerful piece, the tallest Zevrak noted. its voice a harmonious series of tones. Yet humans willingly sacrifice it for lesser pieces. This violates optimization principles. Maya Rousseau smiled pleasantly. Chess reflects our understanding that sometimes the most valuable asset must be risked to achieve victory. We call it a gambit. She deliberately chose not to mention that the Zevrak language had no equivalent term. While this cultural exchange unfolded in Geneva, Commander Tanaka coordinated with defense forces worldwide. From his command center beneath Mount Fuji, he monitored reports from covert operations teams, testing various frequencies against captured Zevrak technology. Subsonic range between 14 to 17 is causes disruption to their neural pathways, reported Dr. Fujita, the team's lead researcher, and certain harmonic combinations in the 20,000+ is range appear to interfere with their communication systems. Tanaka nodded grimly. Implement protocol dissonance immediately. I want every defensive position equipped with acoustic countermeasures within 48 hours. In Bangalore, neuroscientist Dr. Priya Sharma made another crucial discovery while analyzing Zevrak neural patterns. Their processing systems evolved for perfect calculation rather than creativity, she explained to the Regional Defense Council. They can predict outcomes with incredible accuracy, but struggle to generate truly novel solutions. They can't think outside the box because they've never needed to. This insight sparked an innovative defensive approach. Operation Paradox. Military units worldwide began training in deliberately contradictory tactics, advancing while broadcasting retreat signals, concentrating forces at seemingly insignificant locations, and establishing elaborate defensive positions only to abandon them without apparent reason. Back in Geneva, Maya introduced the Zevrak delegates to another human pastime, poker. Unlike chess with its perfect information, poker's strategic deception proved even more confounding to the aliens. Their inability to maintain poker faces, their crystalline bodies involuntarily displaying their cognitive processes through light patterns, made them particularly vulnerable. Fascinating that humans formalize deception as recreation, the lead Zevrak observed, its lights pulsing in patterns indicating analytical reassessment. Your species finds enjoyment in deliberate information asymmetry. We find that limitations often inspire creativity, Maya replied carefully. When we cannot overpower, we learn to outsmart. Meanwhile, Jackson Way's hacker collective made another breakthrough. By analyzing communication patterns between the delegates and the orbiting Zevrak fleet, they identified a vulnerability in how the aliens processed sequential information. They think linearly, Jackson explained to military leaders during an encrypted briefing. Their neural networks process information in perfect sequential order. If we can force them to handle multiple contradictory inputs simultaneously, we might create processing conflicts. General Williams of NATO leaned forward. You're suggesting we can essentially give them a migraine. More like a cognitive seizure, Jackson clarified. Their neural structure isn't designed to handle paradoxes or logical inconsistencies. While they're physiologically different from us, their information processing has similar vulnerability points. Overload them with enough contradictions, and their systems might temporarily shut down. As the diplomatic charade continued in Geneva, humanity's true preparations accelerated. Acoustic weapons designed to target Zevrak neural frequencies were distributed globally. Military units practiced contradictory tactics designed to confuse alien prediction models. And deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, a network of quantum computers began generating strategic paradoxes specifically designed to overwhelm Zevrak cognitive systems. The assessment team, unaware of the true extent of human preparations, transmitted their final report to the Council. Species shows unusual cognitive patterns, but no significant defensive capabilities. Recommend proceeding with standard conquest protocol. The Zevrak Council's response was brief and certain. Begin invasion sequence. Expected completion time. 2 standard cycles. The Zevrak invasion forces advancing through Shanghai's financial district suddenly halted as their communication systems erupted with contradictory signals. Each unit received different tactical updates, some ordering advance, others retreat. Their crystalline forms dimmed momentarily as they attempted to resolve the conflicting commands. Major Lin Wei watched from her mobile command center, a repurposed subway maintenance vehicle that constantly moved through Shanghai's underground network. "Activate the sonic arrays," she ordered. Across the city, modified acoustic systems, some hidden in skyscrapers, others in street-level speakers, began emitting precisely calibrated frequencies. The effect on the Zevrak was immediate and dramatic. Their organized formations dissolved as individual soldiers experienced something their species had never evolved to handle: neural disruption. Some froze in place, their crystal bodies pulsing erratically. Others moved in random directions, coordination completely broken. "Now implement Phase 2, Lin commanded. Throughout the city, thousands of civilians emerged from hiding places, each carrying simple electronic devices designed by Jackson Wei's network. These transmitters broadcast fragments of human culture, music, poetry, jokes, riddles, directly into Zevrak communication channels. Not as weapons, but as cognitive overload. Meanwhile, in Moscow's defense sector, Colonel Ivanov deployed what his forces called matryoshka tactics, layered defensive positions that appeared to protect crucial infrastructure, but actually concealed the real defensive assets within seemingly abandoned areas. When Zevrak forces easily penetrated the outer defensive rings, they found themselves caught in elaborate traps. "They think linearly," Ivanov explained to his officers. "They cannot comprehend that we would deliberately appear weak where we are strong, or strong where we are weak." Admiral Vezer, commanding the Zevrak's Eastern Hemisphere forces, experienced unprecedented tactical confusion. His neural networks, evolved for perfect prediction and pattern recognition, struggled to process the human resistance. "Their defense has no coherent structure," he reported to Fleet Command. "Units change tactics without central coordination. Civilians behave as combatants. Combatants disguise themselves as civilians. They violate all strategic optimization principles." Across the battlefield, human forces implemented the insights gleaned from studying Zevrak psychology. In London, the defense forces deployed temporal confusion tactics, units that would engage, then completely withdraw, only to reappear from unexpected directions. In Rio de Janeiro, civilian hackers broadcast false surrender signals from abandoned buildings, luring Zevrak units into elaborately prepared sonic ambushes. Most disruptive of all was what the human forces called tactical jazz, a deliberate absence of fixed patterns. Military units were given mission objectives, but complete freedom in execution methods. This approach, antithetical to conventional military doctrine, proved devastatingly effective against the pattern-dependent Zevrak. Admiral Orcs, monitoring global battle data from orbit, recognized the emerging crisis before his colleagues. "They're not simply resisting," he reported to the increasingly concerned Council. "They're adapting to us faster than we can adapt to them. Each engagement increases their effectiveness." The Council's response revealed their first hint of uncertainty: implement secondary invasion protocols, increase processing efficiency. But the secondary protocols, successful in 16 galaxies, proved equally ineffective on Earth. When Zevrak forces deployed their standard terraforming technology to modify Earth's atmosphere, they discovered humans had already developed countermeasures based on data extracted from Zevrak systems. In her Tokyo command center, Dr. Sakura Yamamoto analyzed incoming battle reports with growing confidence. "The pattern is clear," she told the Global Defense Coordination Team. "Their neural systems cannot process unpredictability beyond a certain threshold. When faced with enough simultaneous contradictions, they experience the equivalent of cognitive shutdown." General Williams responded from Brussels. "Then we give them paradoxes until they choke on them." Operation Wonderland is now in effect worldwide. Across the planet, human forces embraced the strategic madness that was quickly becoming their greatest weapon: a symphony of chaos against an enemy that only understood perfect order. Dr. Imani Okafor moved through her underground laboratory with determined efficiency, her team working around the clock to refine their understanding of Zevrak neural vulnerabilities. The captured neural node pulsed weakly on the examination table, its crystalline structure emitting faint light patterns. Their entire evolution selected for computational efficiency, not adaptability, she explained to the visiting military observers. When faced with true randomness, their neural pathways attempt to force pattern recognition, creating cascading errors when no pattern exists. Commander Rodriguez examined the 3D model of Zevrak neural architecture floating above the holographic display. So we're essentially giving them the biological equivalent of a logic bomb. More sophisticated than that. Imani corrected. We're creating what I call cognitive dissonance amplification. Their minds literally cannot process contradictions without attempting to resolve them. When bombarded with enough irreconcilable inputs, their neural systems begin prioritizing pattern seeking over all other functions, including tactical awareness. Across the globe, Operation Pandemonium entered its second phase. Military units deployed what technicians called perception scramblers, devices that projected false sensor readings to Zevrak detection systems. Tanks appeared as civilian vehicles, then as nothing at all, then as multiple targets simultaneously. Communication systems broadcast contradictory information across overlapping channels. In Sydney, resistance forces played recordings of children's laughter interspersed with emergency alerts on frequencies Zevrak soldiers couldn't help but process. In Cairo, defense units painted massive optical illusions on building surfaces, creating visual paradoxes that disrupted Zevrak visual processing systems. Each tactic independently might have been overcome, but together they created an overwhelming sensory assault. The Zevrak commanders experienced something entirely new to their species: strategic paralysis. Their neural networks, attempting to calculate optimal responses, encountered so many contradictions that decision-making circuits began shutting down to prevent system-wide failure. Admiral Vezer, whose previous 16 campaigns had all concluded with perfect efficiency, now faced unprecedented failure metrics. Tactical assessment circuits are experiencing cascade failures, he reported to the Council. Pattern recognition systems cannot establish baseline parameters for human response prediction. The Council's reply came with noticeable delay. Unacceptable performance. Implement tertiary protocols and increase neural processing allocation by 200%. This directive proved catastrophic. Increasing processing power only accelerated the Zevrak neural system's attempts to find patterns in human chaos, creating feedback loops that pushed their cognitive systems toward collapse. In her Serengeti facility, Dr. Okafor monitored incoming data with growing excitement. "It's working even better than we predicted," she told her team. "Their increased processing allocation is actually amplifying the effect of our cognitive disruption tactics. They're literally thinking themselves into paralysis." The breakthrough came when Captain Nadia Chen's Special Forces team captured an intact Zevrak command vessel in the South China Sea. Instead of destroying the ship, they implemented what Jackson Way's hackers called Operation Wonderland, injecting the vessel's information systems with human literature, specifically selected to maximize cognitive dissonance. "We're transmitting Alice in Wonderland, Zen koans, paradoxical thought experiments, and nonsense poetry directly into their command neural network," Chen reported. "Their systems are attempting to extract tactical meaning from the Jabberwocky." The effect rippled through the Zevrak command structure. Ships that had conquered thousands of worlds now drifted in confusion, their crews unable to resolve the cognitive conflicts spreading through their neural links. Admiral Orcs, watching from the flagship as his invasion force deteriorated into chaos, made an unprecedented decision. Against explicit Council directives, he opened a direct communication channel to Earth's Defense Command. "Your species has achieved what 16 galaxies could not," he transmitted. "You have introduced disorder that cannot be processed. Request immediate cessation of cognitive disruption for preliminary dialogue. General Maya Rodriguez, coordinating global defense from the Mount Cheyenne facility, studied the unexpected message with cautious optimism. It appears, she told her stunned officers, that the invincible vanishers want to talk. The research vessel Empirical Truth hummed with unprecedented activity as Dr. Ilara and her team expanded their study of human neural patterns. Her crystalline form pulsed with frequencies indicating scientific fascination, a stark contrast to the confusion signals emanating from many of her colleagues. Their neural architecture appears chaotic by our standards, she reported to the increasingly concerned council. Yet this apparent disorder produces remarkable cognitive flexibility. Observe this simulation. A holographic display showed comparative neural responses to identical challenges. Zevrak pathways formed elegant, optimized connections, beautiful in their efficiency but rigid in their structure. Human pathways appeared messy, with seemingly redundant connections and unpredictable activation patterns. When faced with novel problems, their neural inefficiency becomes an advantage, Dr. Ilara continued. They simultaneously explore multiple solution pathways, including many that appear irrational by our standards. This redundancy allows them to discover unconventional approaches that our optimization algorithms would never consider. While the Zevrak struggled to understand human cognition, Major Sophia Jackson's infiltration team made their way through the Empirical Truth's crystalline corridors. Using adaptive camouflage developed from captured Zevrak technology, they appeared to the ship's sensors as maintenance drones. Their security is simultaneously advanced and primitive, Sophia whispered to her team through subvocal communicators. They have perfect safeguards against any threat they've previously encountered, but no contingencies for novel intrusion methods. The team reached the ship's central data core, a towering crystal matrix pulsing with stored information. Senior technician Omar Khalid carefully attached a quantum interface device developed by Jackson Way's hacker collective. Beginning download, he murmured. Their storage architecture is incredible. They encode information in quantum states of crystalline structures. Each facet contains what would be exabytes of data in our systems. As the download proceeded, the team discovered something unexpected: emotional reactions from the ship itself. The Empirical Truth, like all Zevrak vessels, possessed a semi-conscious neural system. It's curious about us, Omar realized, monitoring the interface readings. Not hostile, genuinely curious. I think our unpredictability fascinates it at some fundamental level. Meanwhile, in Dr. Ilara's laboratory, a breakthrough occurred during cognitive testing of human subjects. The Zevrak had been presenting captured humans with impossible problems to study their response patterns. Rather than experiencing the expected neural shutdown when facing unsolvable scenarios, humans showed increased activity in creativity centers. They derive satisfaction from the attempt itself, Dr. Ilara noted with growing excitement. The problem-solving process activates reward pathways independently of success. This is fundamentally different from our neural architecture, which only rewards optimal solutions. Most disturbing to the Zevrak researchers was the discovery that humans actually performed better under pressure. When placed in simulated high-stakes scenarios, human cognitive function didn't degrade, it sharpened. Their evolution selected for crisis performance, Dr. Ilara reported. Their neural chemistry includes stress response mechanisms that temporarily enhance cognitive function, sensory processing, and physical performance. They are literally designed to function optimally when survival is threatened. As these revelations rippled through Zevrak command structures, Major Jackson's team completed their data extraction. What they discovered in the Zevrak historical archives stunned Earth's leadership. Detailed records of 16 galaxies worth of conquered species, none of which had developed the particular cognitive adaptations that made humans unique. The Zevrak expect optimization, Major Jackson explained during her debriefing. Their evolutionary path rewarded perfect efficiency within stable parameters, but Earth has never been stable. Our entire evolution occurred in constantly changing conditions: ice ages, climate shifts, predator-prey dynamics, competition between human groups. We evolved specifically to handle chaos and uncertainty. General Rodriguez studied the translated Zevrak conquest records thoughtfully. So their greatest strength is our opportunity, Jackson confirmed. They literally cannot adapt as quickly as we can, and now they're beginning to realize it. Admiral Xorix stood alone in his private chamber aboard the flagship, his crystalline form dimmed to minimal luminescence, the Zevrak equivalent of deep contemplation. The ship's neural network registered his unusual brain activity, but finding no precedent for it, classified it as anomalous but non-threatening. Orcs reviewed the data from Major Jackson's raid once more. The humans had not destroyed the information they stole, merely copied it. More surprising, they had left behind their own data, cultural artifacts, scientific papers, philosophical writings, and personal messages from Earth's leaders. This exchange, rather than elimination, challenged his most fundamental understanding of conflict. Meanwhile, in her secure bunker beneath Mount Cheyenne, General Maya Rodriguez prepared for the unprecedented direct communication with Xorix. Intelligence analysts had spent hours debating whether this was a genuine diplomatic overture or an elaborate trap. The Zevrak don't have deception in their psychology, she reminded her skeptical security team. If Admiral Xorix says he wants to communicate, we should take him at his word, while maintaining all appropriate security protocols. The communication chamber had been specially constructed based on knowledge gained from captured Zevrak technology. The walls contained dampening fields designed to prevent any potential neural manipulation, while quantum encryption secured all transmission channels. When the connection established, Xorix's translucent form appeared in the holographic field, pulsing with light patterns that Dr. Rice, present as translator, identified as complex cognitive uncertainty, a state previously unobserved in Zevrak communications. You have achieved what 16 galaxies could not, Xorix began, his thoughts translated into English through the interface. You have demonstrated that our fundamental approach to existence contains a critical vulnerability. General Rodriguez maintained a carefully neutral expression. We are simply defending our world, Admiral. Your species initiated this conflict. Precisely. Xorix's form brightened, and therein lies the revelation. We have conquered thousands of species, all of whom responded according to predictable parameters. You did not. Your species employs strategies that appear self-defeating yet prove effective. You embrace disorder as methodology. This represents a cognitive framework entirely absent from our experience. For 10 hours, Xorix remained silent as his neural networks processed this fundamental paradigm shift. The human delegation waited, occasionally exchanging glances, but honoring the aliens' processing needs. When Xorix finally responded, his light patterns displayed entirely new configurations. Our civilization faces an evolutionary crisis, he explained. We developed in an environment of perfect stability, and extended this stability throughout our conquests. But stability, while efficient, precludes adaptation. Your species developed in chaos and learned to thrive within it. This capacity is exactly what our civilization requires for continued existence. On the Zevrak Council flagship, alarms triggered as monitoring systems detected Xorix's unauthorized communication. High Commander Zelvox, dispatched to investigate, was shocked to discover a growing faction of officers gathered in the tactical center, their forms pulsing with the light patterns of intense learning as they studied human cultural transmissions. What is the meaning of this deviation? Zelvox demanded, his crystalline body brightening with authority patterns. The tactical officer's response was unprecedented. We are exploring alternative strategic paradigms. Human cognitive models offer optimization paths not previously considered in Zevrak thought. This is contamination. Zelvox's form pulsed with alarm signals. The Council will order immediate neural purification for all affected units. The tactical officer's light patterns remained steady. Perhaps. But first, consider this human concept. He transmitted a simple data packet containing a philosophical principle from Earth: adapt or perish. Meanwhile, in the secure communication chamber, Orcs made his proposal to General Rodriguez. I seek to establish a knowledge exchange. Your adaptability for our technology. Not conquest, but mutual enhancement. My faction grows within the fleet as more Zevrak recognize the evolutionary necessity of embracing change. Rodriguez studied the alien carefully, and the Council will resist. Orcs acknowledged, his lights dimming momentarily. They cannot comprehend any path, but the one we have always followed. Therein lies their limitation, and the reason we need what humanity possesses. The adaptive resonance moved through space with a grace that belied its revolutionary design. On the observation deck, Captain Elena Reyes and Navigator Orcs stood side by side, watching as the stars blurred past the view screen. The ship's unique hybrid technology enabled travel speeds previously unattainable by either species alone. We approached the Cygnus system, Orcs announced, his crystalline form shimmering with anticipation patterns. Their civilization has been under Zevrak management for 3 centuries. They were particularly resistant to conquest. They might be receptive to our proposal. Elena nodded, remembering the historical records they had studied together. According to the archives, they continued developing art and philosophy even under Zevrak control. Their cognitive patterns might be compatible with the Alliance concept. Below decks, the ship's diverse crew represented something unprecedented in galactic history: genuine cooperation between species with fundamentally different cognitive architectures. Human engineers worked alongside Zevrak specialists, each contributing unique perspectives to challenges that neither could optimally solve alone. Dr. Maya Rodriguez entered the ship's neural core, a chamber where specially trained humans and Zevrak connected directly to the ship's systems through interfaces designed by Dr. Imani Okafor. Here, the rigid efficiency of Zevrak thought merged with human intuition and creativity, creating a hybrid consciousness greater than the sum of its parts. The Council fleet has altered course, reported Lieutenant Cheng, monitoring long-range sensors. They're pursuing us with significant force. Estimated interception in 26 hours. Maya exchanged glances with Orcs. They had anticipated this response. The Zevrak Council, faced with unprecedented rebellion, had dispatched their most powerful weapon, the planet Clearer, to eliminate what they classified as cognitive contamination. Back on Earth, the integration of Zevrak technology had transformed human society in just 5 years. Cities gleamed with crystal architecture that absorbed pollution and generated clean energy. Medical advances incorporating Zevrak neural technology had cured diseases previously thought untreatable. Education systems utilizing hybrid learning approaches produced a generation of children with unprecedented cognitive flexibility. Jackson Wei, now heading Earth's Interspecies Communication Division, monitored transmissions from the adaptive resonance with cautious optimism. They've made successful contact with 3 formerly conquered systems, he informed the United Earth Council. Each has expressed interest in the Alliance concept. The Galactic Cooperative is becoming reality. The Council, however, represented an existential threat to this emerging partnership. Unlike Orcs and his faction, they could not adapt to changing circumstances. Their neural architecture simply couldn't process fundamental paradigm shifts. We cannot defeat them through conventional conflict, Orcs explained during the ship's strategy session. Their technological superiority remains overwhelming. But perhaps we don't need to defeat them. We need to transform them. Dr. Ilara, who had defected with a significant portion of the research vessel's staff, presented their radical proposal. We've developed a neural resonance wave that could temporarily disrupt the Council leadership's cognitive rigidity. A moment of flexibility might be enough for them to experience the benefits of adaptation. As the planet Clearer closed in on their position, the crew of the adaptive resonance prepared not for battle, but for the most audacious psychological operation in galactic history. They would attempt to induce artificial cognitive flexibility in beings evolutionarily designed for absolute stability. The irony is profound. Alina observed to Orcs as they finalized preparations. The species they dismissed as primitive now represents their only hope for evolutionary survival. Orcs' crystalline form, pulsed with what humans had come to recognize as his equivalent of a smile. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson we've learned from humanity. True advancement comes not from perfect stability, but from embracing the very chaos we once feared. As the massive council vessel appeared on their scanners, Captain Reyes gave the order that would change the course of galactic history. Initiate Operation Perspective. Let's teach the most feared species in 16 galaxies how to dance with uncertainty.